You're having a wonderful day. Continue, we left off. Pesachim 31b on the bottom, the Mishnah. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Eichel Trumas Chametz bePesach, a person who eats Truma, that's Chametz, on Pesach. So if a non-Kohen eats Truma in general, not only do you pay, if you do it unintentionally, not only do you have to pay back the principal, you also have to add 25%. So even on Pesach, even though you're not allowed to eat or benefit from chametz on Pesach, nevertheless, you still have to pay the principal and 25%. Why? If you eat the truma, you didn't realize it was truma, even if you knew it was chametz, and you didn't care. I'm eating chametz intentionally on Pesach. And you get the penalty of cutters, but you didn't know it was truma, so you have to pay back the principal plus 25%, and on top of it you add it up, which comes out to like a fifth. Mm-hmm. Why? Question is, it has no value. I didn't. What do you mean I ate the truma? It was chametz and Pesach. You're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to benefit from it, so I have no value. So what do you mean? What principle? There's no principle. I didn't cause any damage. I didn't take a... Because by Truma it says, the Torah says you should give the Kohen as HaKodesh. The Torah doesn't say you pay back money. You pay the Kohen for his monetary damage. You took away property, food that belongs to the Kohen, so you have to pay him back property. No. This is unique to Truma. That's if you steal from any Jew, any person, you have to pay him back. Truma belongs to the Kohen. No, that's not what the Torah is saying. The Torah is saying you have to pay him back with food. You can't pay him back with money. The only way to pay back is you have to pay back with food, that the food itself could become Truma, could become Kodesh. As the Gemara will say, that you don't pay the value. You pay by the measurement, the amount. Whatever amount of Truma you ate, that's the amount you have to pay back, exact amount, even if it becomes much more expensive. If you were just paying a monetary penalty that you have to pay back the monetary value, then you have to evaluate whatever it's worth. If I did a damage of $100 worth of food, I should pay you back with $100 worth of food. But he's saying no. If I ate a certain amount of truma, that amount I have to restore back to the kohen, even if it's doubled in price. Because the Torah tell me you have to pay back the food. So therefore, we're not looking at the value. It doesn't matter that the chametz has no value. You're not allowed to eat or benefit the chametz. When it comes to truma, the payment is not the value. The payment is literally the amount that you ate. So that's where you have to pay back the principal plus 25%. B'mezid, if you ate the truma b'mezid, even if you ate the chametz b'shoigi, even if you didn't realize it was chametz, but if you ate the truma b'mezid, if you eat truma b'mezid, there's no penalty of chimish. The Torah only says you pay the principal because you stole money from the kohen. So in this case, you're potter, you don't have to pay, because as a monetary value, there is no value here. I didn't take anything of value from the kohen. The kohen can't eat this chametz. The kohen can't benefit from the chametz. The kohen can't even use it even as fire. He says potter mitashlumu me'etzim. I couldn't even use it as firewood because that's benefiting from it. So the kohen had absolutely no usage of this chametz. It's like dust. It's nothing. So I didn't do any monetary damage to the kohen, so therefore I'm exempt from pay.
So when you say if you did it accidentally and you do have to pay, it's because you're replacing the item, but what is the item?
Whatever amount of truma you ate. No, but since you see that the Torah says that I don't look at the value, I don't care about the value. You have to, whatever you have to replace, whatever the amount of food you took from the kohen, that's what you have to replace plus 25%. Yeah, and you have to give him food, not chametz, obviously. You have to give him food that could become, where you have to pay.
The thing I'm taking is in food right now.
And it becomes truma, it becomes like holy. Not only the principle you give back.
Saying that we took is
no, but the Torah Because it has no monetary value. Of course it was food. Physically it's food. It was
You
truma.
could eat it.
Oh, so it has no monetary value. We're not looking at the monetary value. It's a fact. I took a certain amount of truma. So Titus told me you have to replace it with the same amount. Yeah.
Then nobody could do anything.
Yeah. It's food. But so you have to replace that plus 25%. And it all becomes truma. You can't just pay the kohen a check, write him a check. No, you have to replace it with the amount of food that could become truma. Could become.
And why 25%? That's
a penalty.
That's
It has. Penalty. Yeah, for an atonement. Yeah, for eating something that's holy. It doesn't belong to you. And holy. Yeah. That's the mission. Zog the Gemara Tanan Hasam. We learned in Tractate Trumas. The Mishnah says, "Oichel truma b'shegeg." A person eats truma by mistake. He didn't realize it was truma. Shalom kedem v'chemish. You have to eat. By the way, shegeg means even if you knew you were eating truma, you didn't know, you didn't realize the penalty that's associated with it. You didn't realize how severe it is. The Torah says you lose your life in the hands of heaven. If someone who eats a zar, a Yisrael, a Levi who eats truma, which is sacred and only a kohen is allowed to eat from it, you lose your life in the hands of heaven. So he didn't realize the severity of it. So whoever eats truma b'shegeg, mishalom keren, the principle of chemish plus 25%. When you add it to the principle, that's called a fifth.
Right.
That becomes 20%, right? Let's say $100, you add $25, $125. That's a fifth of the. Doesn't matter if you eat the truma, you ate the truma, you drank the truma, or you anointed yourself with the truma. Because anointing is considered like eating or drinking. Like drinking. And the Torah says if you eat, kaidesh b'shgaga. If you eat, so this is also included in eating. I ate, drank, or anointed myself with it. Doesn't matter if the truma that you ate was pure or it was impure, and you were not allowed to eat from it. Nevertheless, it's still sacred, it's still holy. Mishalem, you have to pay chumsha. And then the chumsha, the payment that you make to the kohen now also becomes truma. Now it itself becomes sacred. Not only the principle that substitutes for what you ate, even the added 25% that you added now also becomes sacred. So if I will go ahead later on and eat the chaimish, you have the same penalty. It's the same status as trum. You have to pay a fifth on top of that. Okay. That's the mission. So the question is, we had a question. When he pays, does he pay according to how much he ate, the measure of the amount he ate, or the value of what he ate? So the Gemara clarifies. If in the beginning when he ate it, it was worth $4. By the time he comes to pay, it's only worth $1. It went down in price. It plunged in price. It's only worth a zuzah. There, it's no question. There, surely you have to pay. It's not enough to pay the same amount, because you're paying the same amount. You're stealing from the kohen. It's not less than if you steal from a regular person. If you steal from a regular person, you can't deprive him. You look at the time when you stole. When you stole, it was worth. You stole $4 worth. So when it comes to payment, you can't say I'm only going to give you $1 worth. Because the price fell, and therefore I'm going to give you the same amount. So that you can't do. Later, the Vatican is not worse. The kohen is not worse than any case of theft. Now we learn in the Mishnah. We learn the Baba Kama. All thieves pay at the time, according to the time of when they stole it. Yeah. If they stole something that was worth $100. And when it comes time to pay, there was a depression, and now that same item is worth $25. The Ganav can say, "Oh, well, it's my lucky day. I'll buy you this thing, and here it is." No, you have to give me $100. You stole from me $100. So why is the kohen any worse? You stole from him truma that was worth $4. Now it's worth $1. So it's not. I'm sorry. Give me back $4. So then there's no question. It's not enough to pay him the same volume. You have to pay him back the amount that equals the full value of the time that you stole it. Kiti boilach, the question that we have is, in a case, they make kaddish shavi zuzah. In the beginning, when he stole it, it was only worth $1. The truma was only worth, the food was only worth $1. When it comes time to pay, it went up in price. It shot up in price. It skyrocketed. Shavia arba, inflation. It went up 4 times the amount, 300%, 400%. Now it's $4. So what's the question? Do we say you have to pay the same amount? The amalei, we say to him, griva. Griva is a certain measurement. You ate this a measurement of food, of truma. Griva mishalim, pay the same amount, even though now it's worth 4 times as much. I'm sorry, tough luck. No one asked you to steal in the first place. Or perhaps no, if he mishalim. He only has to pay the amount of food that's the same value as the time he stole. He ate an amount that was worth, the griva then was worth, the amount of griva was worth $1. So I'm going to pay 1 zuz, which is much less. That's the question. So I'm Rabbi says, Tashma, I'll bring you a proof. We learn, Rabbi says, oh, how good it is. We learned if a person ate, we learned it in Tractate 8. If a person ate,
with truma, but the market for truma is not really a real market. Right? You can only sell to another coin. So are we saying on the coin market?
you mean on you're looking at the Israel market or at the Kayan market?
I'm saying, are we looking on the coin market, the value, let's say? Could be we are.
Maybe. Interesting question.
Let me explain to you as a coin. We take in Shuma, and you don't question it, all right? You just give and keep giving. That's it, all right?
Tashmas, I'll bring you a proof. Yeah, 24 gifts the Kayan gets.
20%.
Tashma.
You consider a thief if you take consecrated. Are you considered a thief?
Yeah, true, of course he's a thief. Tashma, why? He belongs to the Kayan. Of course he's a thief. Tashma. Besides everything else, you're a thief. Besides he ate holy food and you lose your life. Besides everything else, you're a thief. You stole property.
No, accidentally.
We're talking about accidentally, a mistake. Tashma, if you steal accidentally, you still have to pay back. Tashma, I'll bring you a proof. If a person ate dried figs and he pays them back with dates, he doesn't have to. If someone steals dried figs, he can just pay back dried figs. But he upgraded the payment, he upgraded it to dates. He should have blessings, more blessings to him. So the question is like this: if you say, and we're talking about truma, we're talking about if a person ate.
You gave him better, you mean?
Truma, shoygig. We're talking about truma. He ate truma b'shoygig, and it was a dried figs,
right.
And he pays back the kohen in dates. So even though he doesn't have to, you can just pay him back with the dried figs.
He ate dried figs, and
yeah.
he gave back
dates, and dates are more prestigious. Dates are more valuable. So
they're the $7 grand.
So he should right. So he should follow that, and the figs are also, but still. So he gets a blessing on his head. So the question is, if you're going to say that you pay by the amount of food that you ate, so he paid the amount of figs, and he pays back the amount of the same amount, a griva of figs, and he pays back a griva of dates. So I'm to lach it over bracha. Because the achal griva gregos, he ate a griva, a certain measurement of amount of dried figs. The shavis is only worth $1. The kayav, and he pays him back. He pays the kohen back. Griva the tamarin, the same amount, a griva of dates. The shavi arba, which is worth 4 times as much. That's why you're blessing on his head, blessing on him. Not obligated to.
Well, he did better. Yeah.
But if you're going to say that you only have to pay the value. So my tavel bracha. So why are we showering blessings on him? He damaged. He took a $1 amount of dried figs, and he's paying a much smaller amount of dates, a $1 amount of dates, which is much less. So what's the big deal? Well, why are we showering him with blessings? Tavel bracha.
$1.
Yeah, $1. So what's
It's more heavy, a pound of gold or a pound of feathers.
So my tavel bracha. Bezuzah commercial. So he's not a big tzaddik here. What's the big deal? Rabbi says from here is no proof. I'll tell you. I can tell you if he damim sham. I can tell you really he pay according to the amount of money, and really he's only paying the amount of value $1 worth of dates. But nevertheless, why do we say he's blessed, blessing on him? Because he ate something that it's hard
Not
to
so
sell.
desirable,
It's not so
yeah.
desirable. It's hard. There's no big market for dried figs.
Right.
Yeah.
And he paid him back. It's easy to sell. There's a big market, a fresh date. You can sell it in a moment. So he did upgrade, even though it's not an upgrade. It's the same value amount, $1, but it's an upgrade that it's easier for the kohen to sell, and it's easier for the kohen to sell. But he's not obligated to do that. He ate the dried fig. He's only obligated to pay back the dried fig. But he upgraded it, and therefore
Still worth the same, but
he gets a blessing.
upgraded,
Exactly.
Right. He gave
exactly.
a better product back.
Exactly.
Right.
So even though it's the same value, but
Right.
it's not the only thing you measure something by, how much it's worth. It's worth $1, worth $1. There's a market, right? Is there a market for it? Isn't there a market for it? Is it popular? Is it a popular item? It's not a popular item.
Can the Kohen almond?
If you give him $1 worth of junk, it's junk. But the same dollar worth of something popular, it's easy. It's the same value, but it's easier to sell. Okay. Sagt die Gemara Tanan, we learn now Mishnah, Eichel Trumas Chametz Bepesach, a person eats by mistake.
We learned in the Mishnah.
He eats the truma. He didn't realize it was truma. B'shoigig.
B'shoigig.
And on Pesach, b'shoigig, mishalem kenem v'chem. If it's a b'shoigig, he has to pay the principal plus 25%. So, if you're going to tell me, if you can tell me that he pays that in truma, the obligation is to pay according to the measure of what you ate. To make sense why he has to pay. If you're going to tell me that truma you have to pay by the value, chametz b'pesach b'damamu. Chametz b'pesach has any value? It has no value. It's valueless. You can't do anything with the chametz. I didn't take anything of value from the kohen. The kohen can't eat it. The kohen can use it as fuel. He can't do anything with it. So Gemara says no. It does have value.
Afterwards, after Pesach.
No, after Pesach he can't eat it. And any chametz of a Jew after Pesach can eat it.
Oh.
Hamani Rabbi Yisrael Glili. Chametz b'Pesach mutaban. No, our Mishnah is going to Rabbi Yisrael Glili, that sole solitary opinion that holds that even during Pesach you're allowed to benefit from chametz. So therefore, he can use it. He can use it to burn fuel. He can't eat it.
He can sell it to a guy.
He can't eat it.
Well,
He has to get rid of it. But while he's getting rid of it, he can burn it. There's a mitzvah tashbisi. He has to get rid of it. If you're going to tell me our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yisrael Glili, I might put him in that shulmud me'etz. And why does the Mishnah say that if you eat it, the truma intentionally, when there's no penalty of chaimish, there's no added penalty of adding 25%. But you have to pay the principal. Why does the Mishnah say you don't even have to pay the principal? Why not? Because it has no value. According to basically, it has value. I can use it as fuel. I can benefit from it. While I'm getting rid of it, I can benefit from it. So why would the Mishnah say, Patim that the shlumud may eitzim? It doesn't even have the value of the meitzim.
We got a
But the Gemara says, Saval could have been chudim and akon. Because the Mishnah holds, I could have been chudim and akon. Tani learn about Isam chudim and akon. Eitzis yemaki pudim kishabes litashlum. We learned this earlier. We learned this the other day. Believed that just like by Shabbos, when a person does a sin, you burn a house down on Shabbos, but you get the death penalty. You get stoned to death if you violate Shabbos and make a fire on Shabbos. So you get the death penalty and you're exempt from payment. You don't have to pay for your damage because you only give the stricter punishment. You don't give both punishments. So Rabbi Chudim holds the same thing applies even to the case of kares, like Yom Kippur. If you burned on Yom Kippur, you violated, desecrated Yom Kippur. Not Yom Tiv is only a prohibition. There's no death involved. But if you desecrate Yom Kippur, you get kares, your soul gets cut off. Your soul gets cut off in the hand from Hashem. So there's a death penalty involved, not in the hands of the court, but in the hands of Hashem. So the same thing would apply, that you're exempt from payment because you did something that you get the kares. So the same thing would apply even to truma. The same thing would apply even to truma. Because truma, if you eat truma, a Jew, a Yisrael, a non-Kohen or a Levi who eats truma, you get death in the hands of heaven. So death in the hands of heaven would be the same idea. That kamle b'derabimine.
You can't get both punishments, in other words.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So therefore you're exempt from payment. That's why you're exempt from payment. You're exempt from payment not because it has no value. We establish it does have a value. That's why when you eat it unintentionally, we did it unintentionally, and there's no death in the hands of heaven. When you eat it unintentionally and there's no death in the hands of heaven, then we said that you do have to pay the principal and the penalty of the 25%. Why? Because it has value. You deprive the kohen of the benefit of burning it as fuel. But when you eat it intentionally, eat the chametz intentionally, then you get death in the eat the truma. I'm sorry, eat the not the chametz. Eat the truma intentionally, you get death in the hands of heaven. By eating chametz intentionally, you get death in the hands of heaven. Therefore, come live with the Rabbi, that's why you're exempt from any payment. What about the karas of chametz?
But he didn't eat it.
Oh, if he ate it in the reish, if he ate the chametz intentionally, he wouldn't either have any penalty.
Just plain old chametz on Pesach.
He said it's possible he ate the truma unintentionally, and he ate the chametz intentionally. If he ate the chametz intentionally, so there's worse than death in the hands of heaven. There's karas. Life gets cut off. So why is there any penalty? Yeah, so you'd have to say that he also ate the truma unintentionally. I mean, the chametz is also unintentional. Yeah, according to this interpretation, both of them had to be unintentional. You forgot it. You didn't realize it was chametz. You didn't realize it was truma, because either one of them, intentionally, you get the punishment in the hand. You die. Whether it's karas, it doesn't matter. And in that case, there is no financial penalty. It's enough that you're getting death. There's no financial penalty. Mm-hmm. Right. And in the sefer we're talking about that he ate the chametz intentionally. Even if he ate the shegeg intentionally, or he ate the chametz, even if he ate the chametz intentionally, even if he ate the chametz unintentionally, but if he ate the truma intentionally and he get that death in the hands of heaven,
amazing means either one was amazing.
Yeah, no, that's the chiddush. That even though it's only the death in the hands of heaven, you're exempt from any financial punishment. Because if it's hazed b'chametz, then why does he have to? Then he should have just told us. If you eat chametz, then he should have just told us any damage. Why truma? Don't talk about truma.
Why? Because chametz is karas?
According to Rabbi Yitzhak, any chametz, if I eat from a regular Jew's chametz, according to Rabbi Yitzhak, I caused him damage. He could have benefited from this chametz. He can't eat it. He could have benefited from it while he was burning it. He had to get rid of it. While he was burning it, he could have used it as fuel. He could have used it as fuel.
It's cold out.
To stay warm. He could use it as fuel. Yeah. And therefore you deprive me of my benefits. He should have said, if you eat chametz intentionally, you're exempt from any financial payment because according to Reb Chudim and Akana,
The chametz is still.
yeah, if you eat it unintentionally, then you're obligated. Why does he have to give me a scenario of truma? He's coming to teach me a chiddush, not only in the case of karas, but the same thing applies in the case of misa v'dei shamayim, which is less than karas. Even then, also, if you're getting misa v'dei shamayim, then you're exempt of any financial penalty. You only give one penalty. That's why he's giving us a scenario. If in a case where you ate the chametz unintentionally and the truma unintentionally, then this penalty. Then you have to pay the principal plus 25%. But even in the case where you ate the chametz unintentionally, but you ate the truma intentionally, you get the death in the hands of heaven. There is no financial punishment.
With truma, they probably had a seal on the container so people knew this was temple. That wasn't just that simple. You could.
Truma is not temple. Truma belongs to the kohen. Now, like the Gemara, this argument, whether you pay by the volume, by truma, there's a tater obligated to pay by the volume, or do you pay by the value? Which one is it? Let's say it's an argument of Tanoim. Why? Because we learned Oichel Trumas Chametz. We learned Oichel Trumas Chametz. This is from the Tosefta. Oichel Trumas Chametz with Pesach. If someone eats Trumas Chametz in Pesach, Potem and Tashlum made. Rabbi Akiva, he's exempt from paying, and he doesn't even have to pay the value of using it as fuel, as wood. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Doesn't matter. He doesn't distinguish whether it's shregig or mezid. Even if it's shregig, he doesn't have to pay anything. There's no penalty. If it's mezid, there's nothing. Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri mechayer. Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri says no. You are obligated to pay. You are obligated to pay. Rabbi Akiva argued that Rabbi said to Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri, why? The owner, the kohen, can't eat or benefit from this truma that's chametz on Pesach. So I didn't do him any damage. Well, why should you pay? Pay for what? It was like dust. Rabbi Yechon responded to Rabbi Akiva. Why we just learned earlier the Mishnah Truma is that you have to pay even if you eat Truma that's impure, which the Kohen cannot eat. Nevertheless, you have to eat. You have to pay. So why is this any different? Yes, the Kohen can't eat from it, but nevertheless, you're obligated to pay. Amalei Rabbi Akiva responded, no, it's no comparison. You know why in the case of Truma Tumeya, impure Truma, which the Kohen cannot eat, and the rest of the year, throughout the year, that if you eat it, you have the penalty and you have to pay the principal plus 25%. Even though the Kohen can't eat it, but the Kohen can burn it. All Truma has to be given to the Kohen, including Truma Tumeya, because the Kohen can use it as fuel for his lamp, for his fire, for his pot to cook. In the case of chametz, you can't do that. You can't eat it, you can't benefit it, you can't use it for fuel, so there's nothing I could do with it. So in this case, what am I paying for? There's no value here. You know what it's like? Let's say truma of berries or grapes that became tameh. Berries you can't eat if it's tameh, and I can't burn it because it's wet, it's moist. It's not fuel for fire. You don't throw grapes into grapes as fuel for fire because the grapes is moist or berries. So it's gonna extinguish the fire. So therefore, in that case, you wouldn't have to pay anything because there's no damage to the kohen. Then the Braisa continues.
No use for those things?
Yeah, there's no usage of those things. I can't eat it. It's tameh. Truma became tameh. The grapes and the berries became tameh. I can't eat it, and I can't use it for fuel. You use grapes for fuel?
You can't give it to your animal?
No, kohen is only allowed to use it for himself.
But it's ritual and pure.
You can't give it. No eating. Not the animal can eat it. No, you can't eat it. But to use it as benefit to fuel, it's not fuel. It's not something that's used for fuel.
Today they probably found a use for it, though.
No, it has to be used for fuel to consume it as to fuel. Okay. Then the Braisa continues. In what case, in which truma can be chametz? We're talking about a case when mafresh truma vechmitza. How could truma become chametz? If first you separated truma, and the truma was not chametz, and after you separated and designated as truma, then it became chametz. Then you can have a possibility, a scenario of chametz that's truma. Ava mafresh truma is chametz, but to separate initially during Pesach, to separate the chametz and make it truma, no. Yeah, you can't do any kedusha. It doesn't become truma. It doesn't become holy. Even Rabbi Yossi Aglili that holds he allowed to benefit from chametz and Pesach, but even Rabbi Yossi Aglili will say that you can't take chametz and make it truma on Pesach.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
The mother will explain soon in a minute why that is. But now it's a given that you can't do it. Okay, so that's one brais. Okay.
Another brais.
Another brais. The person who ate the truma by mistake has to give the kohen as hakodesh. So we learned davar haro lias kodesh. You have to pay back with something that it itself could become like truma. It's fit to become truma, become holy.
Yeah, to the beast, the sacred item, yeah. From Leviticus, chapter 22.
In other words, you have to pay back. You ate kodesh, you ate truma. Kodesh here is referring to the sacred truma. You have to pay back with the exact identical thing. It's in this equivalent. You have to pay back something which could be the equivalent, which will also become holy truma.
Right.
It has to be fit to require the sanctity of truma.
And a fifth, right?
Right, so we understand from this that you're only liable to repay only if the truma that was consumed is the type of truma that something like it is fit to become truma. Otherwise, you don't have to repay. Prat, what does it come to exclude? Prat, it comes to exclude la'echel trumas chametz b'Pesach shapatim and atashlumin me'etzim. If you ate trumas chametz and Pesach, since the thing that you ate, since the item that you ate, the truma that was chametz, the identical thing, you can't take chametz now and make it truma. So since I can't pay back the identical thing that you ate, you're exempt from this penalty, from this payment. Therefore, you're exempt from payment. Same
as wood.
No, you're exempt from anything. You don't have to pay back anything. Rabbi Lezer Chisma argues, he says, no, you are obligated to pay back. Amalei Rabbi Lezer Chisma, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. Amalei Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov said to Rabbi Lezer ben Chisma, why does he have to pay? Why are you saying he has to pay? What benefit could the kohen have? He didn't deprive the kohen of any benefit, of any value. He didn't take anything of value. Why is this any different than throughout the year? When your Yisrael eats truma that's impure, which the kohen can eat from, and nevertheless you have to pay. So why is chametz and Pesach any different? Even though the kohen can eat it, it's chametz, but let him pay. So he responded, how could you compare? In the case of Truma Tameh, the rest of the year, the kohen could use it as fuel. But in the case of Chametz and Pesach, the kohen can't eat it and can't use it as fuel. So it is nothing. It's valueless. So he responded, even here, the kohen could use it for fuel. If the kohen wants, Barry, your point, he can give it to his dog. You can use it as fuel to cook it in his pot. Huh? Yeah, he's going to Rabbi Yisrael. Gemara will say. But he holds like Rabbi Yisrael. He allowed the benefits. That's the argument. Rabbi Lezer ben Chisma holds Rabbi Yisrael. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov holds like all the rabbis that you cannot hold the benefit of Chametz and Pesach. Amar Rabbi said, we continue on side B, 32B. Amar Rabbi, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri.
They hold otherwise.
Kulus Vidali Chametz and Pesach Asaban. They all hold not like Rabbi Yisrael.
Right.
They all hold Chametz is not allowed. Rabbi Lezer ben Chisma all holds, but both Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov and Rabbi Akiva. Because in the argument between and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri doesn't argue back with Rabbi Akiva. He doesn't respond to Rabbi Akiva the way Rabbi Lezer ben Chisma responded. That Rabbi Akiva says makes a distinction between Truma Tameya. That Truma Tameya the kohen could benefit from. Right. But here Chametz the kohen can't benefit from. He doesn't respond, yes he could benefit from. Because he agrees that he can't benefit from. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov all hold like the rabbis, the consensus of all the rabbis with the exception of Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, and now we know there's one other rabbi who holds like Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, Rabbi Lezer ben Chisma, that they hold that Chametz and Pesach also ban no. So what's the argument then? Then how do you explain the argument in Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri never responded to Rabbi Akiva's challenge. Why indeed do you have to pay? If it has no value, why does Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri say you have to pay? I didn't take anything from the kohen. It's valueless. It's dust. It's nothing. It's zero. It's zero. He took zero. What do you have to pay? So pay him back zero. Right. You want to double it? Pay him 2 zeros. What do you?
No matter how many zeros, it's still zero.
He says, this is the argument. That's what the Gemara is bringing, that this is an argument of Tanoim. This concept, whether you pay by the value, you pay by the measurement, this is the argument. The Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Akiva holds that when you eat Truma, you have to pay according to the value. So in the case of Chametz and Pesach, it has no value, you pay zero. Rabbi Yechon says, no, the Torah obligates me. The Torah doesn't say anywhere pay money, pay value. The Torah says pay the thing itself, meaning the amount itself. So therefore, I don't care if it has value or not. We don't go by the value. Because in the case where, let's say I stole something was worth $1, and now it's worth 4 times as much. So according to Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri, if you go by the volume, I have to pay back the same volume. I don't go by the value. I go by the volume, even though it's worth 4 times as much. So to a Chametz and Pesach, even though it's worthless, but whatever you ate, you have to pay back.
You take a matcha, you give back a matcha. Is that it?
It's obvious. There's no other way to explain the argument. What's Abaye coming to teach me? So the Gemara says, no, it's not obvious. Abaye had to point it out. Because the time I would think, Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri namek, Rabbi Akiva svidele, really, Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri holds like Rabbi Akiva. That you pay the value. So why is the reason? Then why does Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri say you have to pay? I would say maybe Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri hold like Rabbi Yisrael and like Rabbi Lezer and Chizma. No. And the Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri also agrees it's also banoy, you're not allowed to benefit. And the reason is you follow the measurement. The Gemara says, how do you know that? Maybe that is the explanation. So in Cain, that's the proof, because in Hedele Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri, Rabbi Akiva, why doesn't Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri respond to Rabbi Akiva's argument? Just like Rabbi Lezer and Chizma responds to Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov's argument when he says that it has no value. Why should you pay? He says, well, it does have a value. You can use it to your dog. You can use it as fuel. Rabbi Yechon ben Nuri doesn't come back with that argument because he's saying it's completely irrelevant. Who cares? It has value. I agree with you. It has no value. Nevertheless, you have to pay. Lefi midah. From the Rabban and the rabbis learned, a person who eats an olive amount worth of truma, mishalim keren v'chemesh. You have to pay the principal plus 25% on top of it. Rabbi Shol argues, says no, we don't go by the zayis. It's not enough to eat a kazayis. Have to look at the value. It has to have a value of a penny, at least. Penny is the smallest coin, the copper coin, a penny. What?
It's the same argument of midah or dam.
We'll see. No. He's saying if he ate a kazayis, but it's less than the pruta. If it has a value. I mean, if you have to pay, only if it has a value. Less than the pruta has no value. Right. A certain shear or achila. Okay.
You could eat a whole bucket if it was less than a pruta. He's still not,
Yeah. Very good. You're looking at a chila, who cares about the value? It doesn't matter the value. Or no, you look at the values of what matters, and less than a pruta has no value. Okay. My time at Tanakh. What's the reasoning of the rabbis? The first opinion, because Hamakra, the pasuk says, a person who will eat kodesh, sacred, which is referring to truma, sacred truma, b'shgaga, by mistake. The Torah uses the language yoicha, v'achila b'kazayis. Eating is a kazayis. Less than a kazayis, it's not called eating. So according to this, according to this also, if you ate less than a kazayis, it's worth a pruta. Doesn't matter. It doesn't violate. It's not called eating. Eating is a kazayis. Period. Rabbi Shol, my time. What does Rabbi Shol say to this? How does Rabbi Shol? It says in pasuk yoichal achila. Rabbi Shol, my time. Amakra v'nasa. It says in the pasuk he will give. It says v'nasan lakoy. He should give. V'nasan lakoy in the sakoydish. Ve'ein nesinna pachas m'shav pruta. Nesinna giving is. It has to be something of significance. So it has to be a Shava Pruta. So even though the Torah says Ki Yoichal, the whole pasuk is referring to the Nasan Lakoyin HaKodesh is referring to that he gives. He has to be a Shava Pruta. I'm sorry. No, they said v'nasan means it has to be a shava pruta. Okay. Taisva says, what do you mean? We find multiple times in the Torah where the Torah uses the expression v'nasan, and it specifically means less than a shava pruta. For example, it says you have to give truma, and the law states if you give what to the kohen, 1 grain, 1 kernel of wheat, biblically you fulfilled your obligation of truma. It's less than a shava pruta, it's 1 kernel of wheat. And the Torah uses v'nasan. Yeah, on this topic. And many other examples he brings. A get. If you write a get, v'nasan, you have to give, the husband has to give her the get. If you write a get on a piece of paper that's worthless, it's a good get. You want to say the same thing. The Torah says v'nasan. It has to. You have to give her something that's significant, that's worth at least a shava pruta. So Tosfos answers that it doesn't mean anywhere it says in the Torah v'nasan means shava pruta. In our case, v'nasan means you have to pay. When v'nasan is used as payment, you have to pay back. V'nasan l'kohen, pay back to the kohen. Payment, it's used, the expression v'nasan has to be a significant, at least a pruta. There, we're not talking about payments. Give the kohen teruma. So even if you give him 1 kernel of wheat, you fulfill the obligation.
That's where you get that saying. It's
Or a
not
get.
about the price of
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah. A get, you're just giving her, it's not payment. Okay. So the Gemara says, now the Gemara asks, what's Abba Shol going to do with V'yochel? It says, V'yishki Yochel. Yochel throughout the Torah means a kazayas. So he says, Ahu prat lemazagudas. Abba Shol will tell you, Ki Yochel is just coming, it's not coming to teach me it has to be a minimum of a kazayas, or an alibur. He's coming to teach me that it's when do you obligated to pay a chaimish only if you eat it, not if you damage it. Let's say if I damage the kohen's truma, then you pay like anyone else who damages. You pay the principal. You don't have to add on 25% on top of it. When does the Torah obligate you to add 25%? Only if you eat it. With Tanakama, or V'nasan. According to Tanakama, the rabbi says V'nasan. Doesn't it mean you have to give her, pay back the kohen something significant? At least the pruta. It comes to teach me that only something that's worthy of being kodesh. Prat leichel trumas chametz v'pesach, with the exception. If you eat trumas chametz v'pesach, like we learned earlier, you don't pay. Why don't you pay? Because the Torah says you have to give something that's similar. You have to replace it. Replace whatever you took something sacred. You have to replace it. So only something that could be replaced. Only something. Since I can't take chametz and make it into truma, so if you eat truma and Pesach, also you're exempt from chametz, like we learned on the other side of the page. Okay. The rabbis learn truma pachas b'kezayis. Person who ate truma less than a kezayis. Less than a kezayis. Mishalem es hakeren, you pay the principal. In a mishalem es hachaimish. You don't pay the chaimish. You don't have to pay the added 25%. So Gemara says, wait a minute, what are we talking about here? Hey Chidam, what are we talking about? The les b'shava pruta, if the kezayis, less than the kezayis, is less than a penny's worth, why you pay principal? You don't pay anything less than a penny, doesn't count. Financially, it's not money, it doesn't count. Even if you steal less than a penny, you don't pay back, it's not money. So why you have to pay the principal? So you must say it's worth a penny. Vidis be'shava pruta. Chaimish nami l'shalom. You should even pay the penalty, the 25% on top of it. Who cares if it's less than the kazayas? Abba Shol says it doesn't have to be a kazayas. Ki yoichal means just comes to teach me that only eating and not damaging. But it doesn't come to teach me it has to be a minimum of a kazayas to get the penalty. So even if it's less than a kazayas, I should get a penalty. As long as it's worth a pruta, the Torah says you have to pay the penalty. Everything about a loylam this b'shava pruta, really, I'll tell you, it's worth a penny. I feel nevertheless, even less but kazayas, since it doesn't have a kazayas, mishalmas haken, mishalmas hachemesh. In other words, we follow the opinion of the rabbis, not Abba Shol. The opinion of the rabbis is that even if it's worth a penny, it's not enough. It has to be a kazayas. They taught this in front of Rav Papa. So he said, "Hadloik el Abishol." This is not according to Abishol. Abishol. This must go according to the rabbis. The rabbis say it has to be a kazayis. It's not enough. It's a shava pruta. If you don't need a kazayis, you're exempt from the penalty. So even if it's worth a penny, so it's worth a penny, you have to pay back the principal. But the penalty, the special penalty, the Torah gave you 25% on top. It's only if you eat a kazayis, but not according to Abishol. Abishol argues with the rabbis. He says as long as it has a penny's worth, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be a kazayis, even if it's less than a kazayis. Even if it's less than a kazayis, you would have to pay the penalty.
And that might apply.
I've got less than a kazayis.
So wait a second.
Yeah.
That would apply in the after bracha, though, right? If you eat less than the kazayas,
No, nothing to do with
on the after bracha, you're not
Right.
right.
There's no after bracha. Papa says no. That's what the rabbi said in front of the Papa. The Papa says no. You're making a mistake. Even Abishol will agree with this law. Abishol tartiboy. Abishol doesn't say as long as it's worth a penny, even if it's less than the kazayas. No, you need both. Because the Torah says ki yoichal. He says he learns ki yoichal. I don't need ki yoichal. Does teach me that you have to need a kazayas, but it's not enough. And Nasan also teaches me you need both. You need a kazayas, and you need it has to be worth a penny. Abishol tarti. Does Abishol require both? But now we learn the Mishnah. Abishol says. Sheyesh b'shava pruta chayiv b'tashlum. Learn in the Mishnah that Abishol says that anything that has a shava pruta, you're obligated to pay. Shein b'shava pruta, it doesn't have a shava pruta, you're not obligated to pay. Amru loy, so the rabbis responded, loy amru shava pruta li milabuvan. When is the whole criteria shava pruta? Only in the case of milah, if you enjoy from the temple treasure. By mistake, there the Torah doesn't say eating. The Torah doesn't say anything about eating. The Torah says you're not allowed to benefit. So therefore, it has to be something of value. It has to be a penny's worth. By truma, the Torah says who ate. If you ate the truma, eating is a kazayas, even if it's less than the penny. And vice versa, even if it's a penny, it's not enough. It has to be eating a kazayas. So what do we see from there? That Abishol argues, and Abishol says that even if it doesn't have a kazayas, the only criteria is if it is worth a penny.
I don't need a kazayis, but truma.
Yeah, what's the proof? Because they said, you're not chayiv until it has a kazayis. You have to have a kazayis. It doesn't matter if it's worth a penny or not. But if you're going to tell me that Abishol says that you need both, according to you, that Papa, that Abishol is saying you need both. It has to have a kazayis and a shava pruta. So the language, the rabbi should have argued with Abishol. They should have told him, kivan sheyesh boy kazayis. They should have said, since it has a kazayis and it's worth a pruta, because according to Abishol, you need both. So they should have said, since it has a kazayis, I don't care if it's worth a pruta. But that's not what the language they use. They say achehei boy kazayis. But you're saying even if it doesn't have a kazayis. We're saying if it doesn't have a kazayas, even if it's worth a pruta, I'm sorry, it has to have a kazayas. So you see, Abishol holds only need one. Like the Gemara said earlier, only one. The only criteria is pruta. It doesn't matter if it's less than a kazayas. And if it's a kazayas, doesn't have a pruta, it's not. And that's why the yoichel, even though the Torah says don't eat, someone who ate, it's only coming to exclude someone who damages. Not coming to teach me that it has to be what's a minimum of kazayas that we call eating. No, the only criteria is that if it's something of value, of a nasan, a pruta, they have to pay. That's the tiyukta. So it is a question on the papa. After a papa had been, even a papa himself also changed his mind, agreed with the students. and agreed with this. And according to Rabbi Shol, according to the rabbi, is only one criteria: eating kazayis. Doesn't matter if it's worth a pruta, if it's less than the pruta, and if it's worth a pruta and it's not a kazayis, there's no penalty. According to Rabbi Shol, all that matters is a pruta. If it's a kazayis, I don't care. If it's not worth a pruta, not. If it's less than a kazayis, it's worth a pruta. You have the penalty. It's worth a penny. You have the penalty, the principal, and the penalty on top of it, 25%. So even our Papa also agreed with this. Where do we see this? Tani will in a Brais Chata Bishkog Prat Lemeze. Taylor says that if a person benefits from the temple treasury by mistake, so you have to pay back. You have to pay back the principal to the temple treasury plus 25% on top of it. And you have to bring a sacrifice, but only if you do it unintentionally, not if you do it intentionally. If knowing that it was temple treasury and you use it, you're exempt.
What's the punishment from this intention?
No, you have to pay the principal, but there is no sacrifice and there is no. But isn't it logically compelling, a kal v'chomer? Mar shar mitzvahs. No, you're exempt from a sacrifice. Mar shar mitzvahs shechaye bem kodesh. Other mitzvahs that you're obligated, that if you violate it, you get kodesh, right? When do you bring a sacrifice? You only bring a sacrifice and a sin. If you did it intentionally, your life would get kodesh. You get the death penalty. In the hands of heaven, your life gets cut off. Or in the hands of the court. So if you did a sin where your life gets cut off, so then the Torah says you have to bring a sacrifice if you do it unintentionally. But if you do it intentionally, if you do the sin intentionally, the Torah says you can bring a sacrifice. It's amazing. Meila, if you enjoy from the temple treasury, if you do it intentionally, there is no kares. You lose your life in the hands of heaven, but there is no kares. Your life doesn't get cut off. How much more so? Ain't it din Shabbat? It's amazing that if you do it intentionally, you don't bring a sacrifice, a special sacrifice of Meila, of Hashem Meila, the guilt offering. But the Gemara asks, no, I can refute this compelling argument. Other mitzvahs, you're not obligated death in the hands of heaven. Maybe here it's stricter. Because the case of Milah, you're obligated death in the hands of heaven. Therefore, maybe you should be obligated to bring a sacrifice even if you do it intentionally.
Right, in other words, maybe because it's more strict, that's why you don't deserve to bring a karma.
No, that's not what the Gemara is asking. The Gemara is saying that the Chayev Misa is stricter. You're asking a good question. Taisus is asking. Taisus has the whole logic doesn't make sense. The original logic, is not so compelling. On the contrary, you're arguing that if the other mitzvahs are stricter, it gets Kaddish is worse. And nevertheless, it's only in the case of unintentional. If you do it intentionally, the Torah says you don't bring a sacrifice, a sin offering. How much more so? Meila, which is less severe. Because if you do it intentionally, you only get death in the hands of heaven, which is less severe than Kaddish. Your life getting cut off. How much more so if you do it? You only bring the guilt offering only if you do it unintentionally. But if you do it intentionally, you're exempt. Places it on the contrary. That logic is compelling the other way. You know why the Torah says you can't bring a sacrifice in the case of all the other sins? Because it's so strict, it's so severe. The sin is so strict, the sin is so severe that if you do that, your life gets cut off, your soul gets cut off. Therefore, a sacrifice and atonement cannot help you. The sin is too strict, the sin is too severe, atonement can help you. But in our case of benefiting from the temple's sacred treasury, which is less of a sin, how do I know it's less of a sin? Because you don't get the severe punishment of your life getting cut off. You get a more lenient, a lighter punishment. You get death in the hands of heaven. Maybe there, atonement will help. Maybe there, you should bring a sacrifice. That's what, on the contrary, the logic is compelling the other way.
Nothing in a chariot. What's the extremity?
Taisu says it's a good question. He could have asked that question, but he asked another question. It also refutes this.
So the Gemara is basically saying which maybe Misa de Shemayim is more common than the
No,
first.
no, now the Gemara is saying Misa B'dei Shemayim Mucham L'Kabra. So the Gemara is going to get to it. 1 second. Hopefully, it's a contradiction in the beginning, and you start out the Kal V'Chomer because all Kaddish is worse. Now all of a sudden you're turning it around. You're saying, no, you know what? Misa B'dei Shemayim is worse. Make up your mind. Then you have no argument in the first place. What are you saying in the beginning? What are you refuting? It comes these are bishgaga. Taita says clearly that by meila only b'chata bishgaga, only when you sin unintentionally, only then do you have to bring the guilt offering. Hashem milas. Pratlam beis. V'amalei Rav Nachman Yisrael Rav Chia. Rav Nachman Yisrael asked Rav Chia bar Rabin, "Haytana meikara alim leikaris." In the beginning, it starts out the compelling argument, logical argument, because karis is stricter, severe. Well, at the end, he turns it around. Alim misa b'dei Shemayim is severe. Amalei, Rav Chia bar Rabba explained to Rav Nachman Yisrael, Hachi Kama. This is what he says. Lo yim amrit b'shar mitzvahs. You can't compare. Other mitzvahs can l'chayv and mitzvah pachas mikazayis. Other mitzvahs you're not obligated unless you eat the kazayis. Only then does your life get cut off. By Me'ila, the Torah doesn't say, we said earlier, by Me'ila, the Torah doesn't say don't eat. The Torah says don't benefit. Anything that's value, even if it's less than kazayis, as long as it's worth a penny. So maybe since the Torah is so strict by Me'ila, that even if it's less than kazayis, unlike all other prohibitions, you're obligated. So therefore, maybe you should even bring a sacrifice, even if you do it intentionally. That's what he says.
Mila was an argument before we're talking about.
No, also in the Ila he said, as long as it's Shavah Pruta, even if it's less than the Kazayas, right? He said only by Me'ila is less than the Kazayas. All that matters is a Shavah Pruta. But by Truma it has to be the rabbis are arguing. By Truma it has to be arguing with Rabbi Shol. By Truma it has to be a Kazayas, a minimum of a Kazayas. It's not enough if it's a Shavah Pruta. It's not like Me'ila. Me'ila, even it's Shavah Pruta, even it's less than the Kazayas. But in Truma, no, it's not enough for Shavah Pruta. It has to be a Shavah Pruta. It has to be a Kazayas. And a Kazayas, I don't care. Shavah Pruta, not Shavah Pruta, it's a Kazayas. But here, it's a Shavah Pruta, even less than a Kazayas. So that's what he says, Bishgaga. Amalei, you rested my mind. Hashem should rest your mind, I can rest your mind. But we'll stop over here, because then he continues. The Gemara asks that why we can refute this argument. Everyone have a wonderful day.